I'm Dr. Bob Grakowski. Welcome back to the BetterBrain Academy. So last week was our prep week, taking accountability of when you're eating, what you're eating, how much water you were drinking, along with where and why. There's been a lot of insight from some comments already from our part of our team. And it's across the board. A lot of people realize that they're not getting enough water intake on a daily basis. And when they did, they started to feel better. Less sinus problems have been accounted, less headaches, less overall joint pain, better clarity of thinking, along with when they were eating. Maybe eating too late in the morning or too late at night. And then obviously what they were eating has been an indicator of a lot of things. In the brain span testing, we're going to talk about what you're eating and how you can do the addition and subtraction. Adding something and subtracting something is a zero sum. So, meaning if you add one thing and subtract one thing, it's a much easier way to make some changes in what you're eating. But the most important thing we need to really look at is what is the one thing that we can add that has the biggest impact on our cellular health. If we look at our cellular health, we want to make sure that we're taking control of our brain, and it all comes down right to the cell level. Every one of our cells, our heart cells, muscle cells, liver cells, brain cells, all of those have to have certain nutrients, and the most important is our essential fatty acids. Our essential fatty acids are so important because the word essential means that they are necessary to have in our diet. And fatty acids are the components of the cell wall. Our brain is 60% fat, and most of that are essential fatty acids or omega-3 oils. So if we do not have a good cell membrane, then the process of getting nutrients into the cells and getting toxins out of the cells is greatly hampered. In the standard American diet, we have way too many omega-6 oils, which are inflammatory, pro-inflammatory oils. And what they do is they fight for receptor sites on the cell. So if we have too much of our omega-6 in our diet and not enough omega-3s, then the cell wall, the way that we actually have the nutrients going in and out of the cell wall is greatly affected. So we want to make sure that these fatty acids are at a certain ratio. Your omega-3 ratios should be about 12% of the cell wall membrane. Now, the uniqueness about the brain span testing, it's not a blood test, it's actually checking, a very specific test to check the membranes of the red blood cells. So they're checking to see how healthy the cell wall is. The cell wall is so important because the nerve supply to that area is where you conduct the electricity to the cells to keep the cells healthy. If you have a cell wall that is out of ratio with your omega-3 and omega-6, it's like clogging a filter. Just imagine, if you've got a filter and it's got all these particles in it and things can't get into it. What happens is things back up and toxins form. So what happens then if we have a lower omega-3 ratio in the cell wall is then our blood sugar cannot get into the cell, certain oxygen, certain minerals, things can't get into the cell wall themselves, and we have higher blood sugar, we have certain toxicity in the blood. And if you just take a blood test and you have higher blood sugar and you don't check the cell wall, then what you are diagnosed with is diabetes. Well, in our diet these days is we've had so many fast foods and the hydrogenated oils, that these oils that are change the molecular structure by hydrogenating them causes these oils to actually cause clogging of the cell membrane. If you start to add your omega-3 ratio to get it at a higher level and reduce your omega-6 in your diet, then the cell wall is more permeable, and this semi-permeable membrane can allow things to get into the body and into the cell wall and allow blood sugar and these things to regulate more. If you just measure the amount of sugar in the bloodstream, you can be diagnosed with diabetes. If you have a problem where you have too much blood sugar and you can't get things into the cells, then what happens is the glucose and the insulin doesn't come into the cell itself. Well, you become insulin resistant. So you have too much insulin in the blood and too much sugar in the blood, and that's where you create a whole bunch of inflammatory processes. So one of the most important things to determine is how much omega-3 should you be taking and how much omega-6 should you be reducing. So one of the most important things to do, especially with the brain span testing, is it gave you a number of how much supplementation you should be doing with your omega-3 oils. And then obviously you want to increase that supplementation to the level that was stated in the testing and start to reduce the hydrogenated oils and the fast foods and the things that are actually creating inflammatory processes. And that ratio, you can start to raise the percentage of omega-3 ratio in the cell wall and reduce the omega-6 ratio so you get regulation. Your blood sugar starts to regulate better. I see patients where they reduce their insulin and they actually start to go off of insulin because their cells are healthier. Oxygen, blood sugar, all these things are getting into the cells because they've got a healthier cell membrane and they're reducing the toxins that are coming into the body. We're going to talk about the omega-6, omega-3 ratio and how important that is in the next video. But for this week, it's important to look at, you want to look at your diet, make sure you're recording in the BetterBrain eating log, and start your supplementation of your omega-3s and start to reduce the amount of your fast foods or foods that are hydrogenated. Start looking at labels. If you see something that's hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated, realize that has a lot of these trans fats and a lot of the omega-6 oils that are unhealthy for you. So we want to make sure that you're tipping the scales, adding your omega-3s, reducing your omega-6 so the cell can become healthier, blood sugar regulates, better nerve supply, better brain health, better heart health, and just these simple things. So add omega-3s, start to reduce your omega-6, and we'll talk about the ratio on the next video. So thanks for playing with us. Let's continue the healing process. We'll be going through each one of the brain span tests individually, but this one is on your omega-3 index. Look at that and see what percentage. You want to be at 12%. From your testing, it gives you that number, and down below it tells you what amount of supplementation you might want. So Dr. Bob, look forward to talking to you on next video.